Monte Carlo simulation is an integral part of one of my courses. And an integral part of Monte Carlo simulation again is pseudo-random numbers. As the name implies, pseudo-random numbers is a sequence of numbers that appears to be random but are in actuality perfectly deterministic. Now, there are certain criteria that a number sequence must satisfy in order to be regarded as a pseudo-random. Now, we could talk about what kind of statistical tests we could run in order to verify this criteria, but alternatively, I want to rather demonstrate more visually the randomness that pseudo-random numbers exhibits. And we're going to do that with a so-called random walk. So just as a point of departure and to illustrate what I mean here, let's take a brief look at this clip from a video from Khan Academy.
We can visualize this random sequence by drawing a path that changes direction according to each number, known as a random walk. Notice the lack of pattern at all scales. At each point in the sequence, the next move is always unpredictable.
Before we jump over to the VBA editor, I thought we could just demonstrate here in the worksheet how the subroutine is going to work. So we're going to start out in a particular cell here, doesn't matter which one, and we're going to have a counter that is being incremented every time we move to a different cell. So we start out by typing 1 in the initial cell. Then we're going to generate a pseudo-random numbers, and based on that number, there are going to be 4 possible outcomes. Either we move upwards or north, or we move west, or we move south, or we move east. So let's say that we ended up going north. Since this is an empty cell, then I will just type in 2. Then we generate another random number. Maybe this time it would be corresponding to west. So we end up with a 3. We generate another random number, and maybe it tells us to go down south. We input our counter here, 4. But now let's say that the next random number, or pseudo-random number, dictates that we need to go north again. This time there is a number there already, so instead of inputting here the next number of the counter, 5, I'm going to edit the cell. So 3 is still going to be there. We're going to add a comma and then the 5. And that's going to be the logic of the script. So to open the VBA editor, we can use the shortcut Alt F11. So hold down the Alt button and then click F11. Then you get up this VBA editor. It is currently gray, so we need to open up a new module. You can do that by hitting this button in sequence, the Alt button, I for India, and M for Mike. And here you can just type out the code. And here is the entire code. Let's just go through it. Or perhaps even better, let's try to just run it first. So with just 10 steps, let's see what happens when I run this script. Yeah, it generates a random walk. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Let's try that again. Slightly different path. So every single time we run it, we get a different random path. And if I try, instead of 10 steps, if I try 100 steps, let's see what happens then. Then we get something a little bit more elaborate. Very interesting. So let's go back to the script there and try to explain it step by step. So first of all, this is a subroutine, so we need to start by typing out sub, and then the name of the subroutine. I can name it whatever. I choose to call it the random walk illustration because that's a very short and descriptive name. Open parentheses and end parentheses, nothing more than that is needed. So that's going to be how to start the subroutine. And at the very bottom, we need to write end sub, and all other code goes between these 2 lines. So first I define some kind of parameter. which just specifies how many steps it's going to be in this random walk, like doing 100 steps or 10 steps, or how many steps you want to run. Or if you take too many here, then it could crash, just so you are warned. Next, what I do here is to select the range column A all the way to column XFD. So that would be the equivalent of doing something like this. Let's see, let's just get over here. Selecting column A, B, C, D, all the way to the final column, XFD. So, and the reason I do that is because I want to delete absolutely everything that's within the worksheet. So range column A to XFD, clear contents. Just delete whatever is in the cells. And if you don't specify the rows, then it will automatically specify all the rows in a particular column, by the way. And you should be very careful with this, because once you delete something with VBA, you cannot get it back. So if I have something important in my spreadsheet and I use clear contents, it is basically gone forever unless you close the spreadsheet without saving, and hopefully you have a previous save where you had what was deleted. Next here, I select range age 20. So range, open parentheses, quotation mark, age 20, end quotation and parentheses, dot select. Well, I will just select this cell here, age 20. That's where I'm going to start off. Next here, I add the content of just the number 1. So in range age 20, I'm going to give you the value of 1. So it will just type out 1 like this. Next here, we get a really big for loop. So for counter equals 2 to number of steps. And number of steps was defined up here. Counter is just name of this variable that's getting incremented. Usually we call it like I. For I equals 1 to something, to n. And at the bottom of the loop here, I write next counter or next I. So what happens there? I do basically 3 different things within this for loop. And the defining characteristics of for loop is that I know ahead of time how many iterations there will be. So in this particular case, it will be number of steps 10, but since I started 2, it becomes like 9 iterations here. I'm going to do 3 things there. First of all, I'm going to generate a pseudo-random number, and then I'm going to verify that this is a good pseudo-random number, because there's something we can mess up here. I'm going to get back to that. Next, once I have the pseudo-random number, I'm going to use like a if-then-else logic statement to tell me where to move in the spreadsheet. And finally, I'm going to add some content or edit the content of the particular cell that I end up with. So let's talk about how to generate a pseudo-random number. In general, that is very simple. You just use RND, which is like short for random number. And so what this does, this creates a number that's between 0 and 1. So the boundaries of 0 is included, but it doesn't go all the way up to 1. It goes to 0.9999, 15 nines in there. So this will be uniform between 0 and 1. However, I'm going to use this to move around in the spreadsheet, and I put this inside of a while loop. And the reason is, if I am in, let's see, if I am in column A here, for instance, I could be here at A7, and I get a pseudo-random number that tells me to go west, to the left here. That wouldn't work, because then I will be leaving the spreadsheet. So I will get an error message from Excel, and the script will terminate. So if that happens, then I wanted you to redraw another random number. So there are 4 mistakes that can happen there. I could be trying to go west or to the left when I'm in column A. Or alternatively, I could be trying to go north or upwards when I'm in row 1. Or I could be trying to go downwards or south when I'm in row number 1,048,576. And the final mistake I can make is that I could be trying to go east when I am in the final column here. So column XFD, which would be 16,000, let's see, 16,384th column. So I start by making a boolean variable here, status. I just say it's equal to true. Then I'm gonna do this while loop as long as the status is equal to true. Next, I generate this pseudo-random number and I set status to false. And then immediately afterwards, there are 4 different if statements here to check these 4 different errors I can make. And if none of them are triggered, then status is going to remain false and the loop is terminated. So first one here, for instance, we can't really read this without knowing what comes next there, so that's a bit bad programming from my end of the side there. But essentially, if this random number is less than or equal to 25, well, then I want to go north, to go upwards. So if that's the case, if I am trying to go upwards and at the same time I'm already in row number 1, well, then I'm going to set this boolean variable to true and we need to loop back again and try to draw another random number. So going upwards in the first row, not good. Well, alternatively, this statement right here, this basically means this is what I decided is going to correspond to going west or going to the left. So if you're going to go to the left and you are in column number 1, well, that's not good. You need to try again. And this right here, this is me saying, okay, I want to go downwards, go south. Well, if you're trying to go south and you are currently in row number 1,048,576, which is the last row in this version of Excel at least. If you have another version of Excel, then this number might be different for you. But if both of these two are fulfilled, well, I want to redraw another number. And finally here, this corresponds to, this is what I decided I'm going to mean to go to the east. Well, if you do that, and you're currently in the column XFD or column number 16,384, well, again, you need to redraw another number. So next here, once we have this pseudo-random number, I have an if-then-else logic statement. If u, this pseudo-random number, is less than or equal to 25, well, then I want to move upwards. And to do that, I use active cell.offset -1, 0. That means to move 1 row upwards and don't change the column. If that's not the case, so if u is greater than 0.25, but at the same time is less than or equal to 0.5, well, then I want to move to the left or to the west. So the first 0 here means that we don't change the row, but -1 here means that we decrease the column index by 1. So basically going to the left. So if you were in column B, we will go to column A. And if we are between, or if you're greater than 0.5, let's see, there's a mistake here in the script, as you can see. This should be 75, so 25, 50, 75, yeah, there we go. So if we are greater than 0.5 but less than 0.75, then I want to go 1 row downwards. And if you are between 0.75 and 1, well, then I want to go to the right. So a small mistake in the script there. Luckily, we noticed it and fixed it. So basically what's going on here is that we are creating a number between 0 and 1. And I have decided that different proportions of this length, let's imagine that this number is basically a line going from 0 to 1. And each segment of the line represents a certain action. So by having increments of 0.25 here, I'm creating 4 possible outcomes of equal probability. So we're basically turning this continuous uniform variable, RND, into a discrete uniform variable. And the thing is that what you're doing here can very easily be modified to generate any kind of pseudo-random number from any kind of discrete probability distribution. I can add as many else-if statements as I want there to get more possible outcomes. And I can just change the cumulative probabilities there into get any kind of desired outcome. So right now they're uniform, but they don't have to be. I could be saying there's only 10% chance of going north, but then it could be 20% of going to the west, and then 30% of going to the south, and the residual will be going to the east. So I can have as many outcomes there as I want, and I can also change their weighting. Next here, we are just outputting information. So I'm asking in an if statement there, if the active cell, the cell we are currently in, if it is empty, well then the cell we are currently residing in is just going to have the value of counter, and it's going to print in there whatever value counter currently has. And if the cell is not this empty, well then I'm going to just modify the value. So the value of active cell is going to be equal to itself, and this is called like string concatenation. I'm going to add something in the end here. In quotation marker, comma, and then white space. So I'm adding the string here, comma, and then a blank space. And I'm adding in the counter, which is a variable. And that's all there is to it. So let's just run this one more time. Let's see, we can take 100 here. Or maybe we can take a bit more. Let's try 300 and try to be in another cell here. Let's see, in cell AAA. 5,000 for instance. So let's try to run this. And there we go. Let me just zoom out. So here is the random walk that we generated. Let's try that again. Very nice. So if you want to kind of sketch like a map for your fantasy novel that I know that you are writing, then you can kind of just outline the borders there and say, well, this is like the map of the world, or wherever your fantasy novel takes place. So that's one alternative usage for this. So yeah, hope you learned something from this. Let me just scroll to the script one final time. There we go. That's the script, and we learned quite a lot there actually. We learned about pseudo-random numbers. We learned about string concatenation. We learned about for loops and while loops, and if then else statements and subroutines, and how to move around in Excel with using VBA relative to other cells by using the offset functions. So yeah, see you guys around. Like, comment, subscribe, and all the other stuff. You know what to do. I don't. You know. Bye bye.